Welcome in to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. My name is Micah. I'm joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And once again, we are missing the third member of our group, Kalen. There's some contract negotiations going on. He's holding out. There were rumors of a potential trade from Dallas to Houston. That has not been confirmed. So we'll keep you guys updated. But for the time being, it'll be another two-man show from your pals, Micah and Lino. And we're going to cover mostly USA basketball today and then maybe some general Olympic conversations as well. It's a very exciting time of the year. Before we get into all of that, we will cover a couple news and notes. I would say none of these are groundbreaking, but stuff you might have missed just kind of as we're pretty far away from the intense times in the NBA season. So to run through them, I'd say probably the most significant move, Tyus Jones signed a deal with Phoenix. I believe it's a 1-year vet minimum. It's an interesting deal. I don't know if he is a perfect fit for them, but vet minimum, that's got to be, pretty nice. And then we have Precious Achiuwa going to the Knicks. That is a big deal for their center rotation. And then we had, he stayed with the Knicks, obviously, which is a big deal because they were down to like just Jericho Sims at that point. And then Gordon Hayward retired. So 14-year career, one-time All-Star. Lino, what is your favorite Gordon Hayward memory?
I don't have any. I can't remember the last time I saw Gordon Hayward play basketball. And that's very unfortunate because he was an incredibly talented player with maybe one of the most injury-riddled careers. For all intents and purposes, seemed like a solid guy. Never really got to see him at the level we thought he was going to play at. But ultimately, appreciative of what he brought to the game. I know he was a veteran presence in a lot of different young locker rooms over the past 5 or 6 years. And I think that's going to probably make a difference that I think the general public won't really get to see or have an idea of. But I know the league appreciates everything that he brought to the table. And I just wish that, we could have seen him at his fullest potential.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, whenever the 30 for 30 comes out about this version of the Charlotte Hornets and everything that goes on in that crazy locker room, I'll be very excited for the Gordon Hayward portion of those one-on-one interviews. Next up, we had some more minimum signings. Reggie Jackson going to Philly. So now they have Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson to back up Tyrese Maxey. I believe Nick Nurse will probably play Reggie Jackson over Jared McCain, which will be very frustrating for all of us that are excited to see Jared McCain play. Tom Thibodeau got an extension, well-deserved, great coach. Andrew Nembhard got an extension from Indiana, 3 years, $59 million, pretty low, but he secured his money. There were some different points of leverage for both sides, but it makes sense for Nembhard to go ahead and get locked down. And then Jared Allen with Cleveland got a 3-year, $90 million contract. So Cleveland is pretty locked in to that core. So that'll be interesting to watch. They have a good mix of young guys and vets. So speaking of young guys, some of Lino and I's favorite youngins, the Miami Heat Summer League team secured a championship. I did not mention this at the top of the show because I knew people would turn it off, but we're going to talk at least a
We
little
got you.
bit.
You're stuck.
Talk at least a little bit about the Heat winning the Summer League championship. We dove pretty deep into kind of the different prospects and how they looked on the last episode, which was also just me and Lino. So, of course, lots of Heat talk there. But Lino, whether it was just something about the game against Memphis itself, it was a very close game. That was a lot of fun to watch, or just kind of a general takeaway from the Heat Summer League championship. What were your thoughts on that whole process?
Mostly, I was super excited to see these two teams in the championship. I thought the Heat and the Memphis Grizzlies really fielded the two most mature and developed summer league teams, which is not exactly it's not something to really hang a banner about, but it was very interesting to watch. It's just throughout the summer league competition and through the tournament, it just seemed like those players, those were the two teams that put real players on the floor. And so I'm glad they both made it to the championship. I thought it was a really good game. I thought it was compelling. Both teams came out, really competed, outside of injuries. It wasn't a situation where these teams started benching the players they were really interested in. They really got to see them in a high pressure, fabricated high pressure situation, which is what the whole point of summer league is try to get those reps in and try to take away whatever you can from it, regardless of maybe how reliable the data is from summer league. It was really cool to see Pelle Larsson actually come out and have a really solid game. Got into a bit of foul trouble early, so probably could have seen an even better game from him. But the intensity, the ability to get to the rim, and even just making an incredible, game-winning shot at the end of the game, just really pointed to all the signs we were hoping to find in him, and felt like those things were there throughout the tournament, but that he never really got his shot at making a statement in the game. And this felt like that game for him. Whereas we got that from Josh Christopher, we got that from Chloe Ware, we got that from guys like Isaiah Stevens. We never really got the Larson game. And so it was super nice to be able to see that happen. And Memphis has a lot of talent that I think they should be really excited about. And so Gigi Jackson being one of them. Jake LaRavia came out and played really hard, maybe too hard for our liking, but overall, I thought it was a good game. Micah, what did you think, and what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, number one, I definitely was in full fan mode for this game. I was seething with anger about Scottie Pippen Jr. doing all that flopping. He got to the free throw line so many times.
Hey, I like that kid.
He's good. He's good. He's definitely figuring stuff out, but he used all like the Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry tricks to get to the line a lot. And then, Jake LaRavia, like he was one of those summer league guys where it's like, he had like 11 or something in the first quarter. And I was like, shouldn't this guy be, past this? Jaime's not playing. Why is their vet out there? Like, just like trying to like rationalize why we were getting killed. And that bench of theirs was talking a lot. Like every time the Heat were at the free throw line, they were talking crazy to whoever's shooting. So as a fan, it felt very good to win a summer league championship. Also, NBA.com, where's the merch, man? I was ready to buy a Summer League championship shirt. You can't find them anywhere. So
no, that would be a meme on Twitter so fast if they release those t-shirts. Every single time Jimmy only scored 15 points a game, the t-shirt's getting uploaded to the timeline immediately. So
hang the banner. But yeah, other than that, Pelle Larsson, like we just have to find a way to get that guy minutes. Obviously, with injuries, I think he'll get to play. But even with the main rotation, I just think he is going to be a contributor sooner rather than later, in whatever capacity he's kind of allowed to be out there. The Heat do have a deep roster, even if it doesn't have a ton of high-end talent outside of Jimmy and Bam. They do have a lot of solid NBA bodies. So we'll see how that goes. And then another big thing that came out of this was Josh Christopher got a two-way, which is really exciting. That was something Lino and I both talked about last episode. Really hope that he would get that look. Zion Pullen was the guy that was waived to open up for Josh Christopher to get the two-way. Pullen just never really put it together at Summer League, but I would guess he'll be a part of Sioux Falls Skyforce this year and have another year in the farm system for Miami, and he might get another look. So if you don't have any other thoughts on the Heat Summer League, we can transition to another very fun part of this summer, which is the Olympics. And of course, with this being a basketball podcast, we will focus primarily on the USA men's basketball team. There has been plenty of drama for an undefeated team, I would say. Mostly conversations about starting lineups and different combinations. Since we last recorded, we've actually had Olympic play start, which has been very fun. We had a game against Serbia. So that was a team, actually two teams we had exhibitions against. So we had Serbia and South Sudan. The biggest note to come out of those is Kevin Durant is back. He is someone that missed all of the exhibition games. And when he came out, it was like he missed no time. And just like anecdotally, this is something I feel Kevin Durant does a lot. Like even in the NBA, when he comes back from an injury, so many guys like are rusty, especially if you follow a team closely. Like anytime a player gets hurt, it's like, dang, it's the 2 weeks they miss. And then the first week they're back. They're, so ineffective and rusty and just, so for Durant, he's always been someone that comes back and it's like he just has been playing the whole time. Certainly looked like that in his first game back. I think he missed one shot on the way to like leading the team in scoring. So Durant was very impressive. The Serbia game, the U.S. pulled away, as they did against South Sudan as well, although it was close at points, but South Sudan had such an excellent showing in that exhibition where I believe the U.S. only won by 1 point. the team is definitely ready this time for South Sudan. So, Lino, what have your thoughts been on the USA men's team? Any main takeaways so far?
Yeah, man. I mean, to touch on the Kevin Durant point, what a guy. Like when you say, Kevin Durant is back, we mean Kevin Durant is back. Like he just brought such a great energy off the bench after not playing and, really lit a fire in this team that they probably didn't need. We've been pretty dominant so far since the actual USA, the Olympics have started. And it's just great that the icing on top is, we have Kevin Durant who looks like he doesn't know how to miss a basketball shot. Like he could try to miss and probably still make it. His mechanics are just so fluid, and I feel like they get put to highlight in the Olympics because everybody's watching and it's so little prep time and it's out of the usual, rotation throughout the season as far as people's cadence with life. But Kevin Durant, the one thing that's going to be constant is that jumper. Like, I don't care what else is going on in the world. Kevin Durant is making a jumper somewhere. There's memes about him being in the club, practicing his jumper, doing all this stuff, all these conversations about Kevin Durant outside of basketball. There's not really a Kevin Durant outside of basketball. He is a hooper. Like he is a hooper on the court, off the court, it doesn't matter. And it shows in times like this. And this is where it should really be appreciated. And Kevin Durant obviously is hailed as one of the best players to ever play the game, but I still feel like we're going to get to the end of his career and not have really appreciated what we got from him over these past few years. And so shout out to Kevin, shout out to Team USA for really showing up. And I just want to say shout out to the coaching staff for sticking to their guns. I think there's been a lot of conversation around the rotation with this team, around Kerr's decisions to bench Tatum and then bench Embiid and, their attitudes about that. First and foremost, I feel like those guys handled it great. You see a picture of a guy sitting on a bench, kind of stone faced. These guys aren't just, up and laughing and having a smile on their face 24/7 for a whole 40-minute basketball game. Like sometimes you're just sitting there. But, if you actually watch the game, you saw them get up and celebrate with their teammates. Often they weren't complaining to the press. There hasn't been this conversation around it. I think they understood what they're walking into and that this is a situation where really good teams don't go 15 deep into a bench. Really good teams don't go past 9. Like if you have to do that, that's a problem. Like if I have to go to person number 10 or 11, that's an issue. So I like that. And especially because this game is only 40 minutes rather than 48, like that matters. And Steve Kerr knows that. And he makes these decisions based off his opponent. And they've worked. The proof is just in the pudding. We are dominating the way we need to. He's had these conversations with these players where we're putting ego aside. We're going to put the lineup that I think is going to be the most effective. Sure, Jason Tatum could have played in that game, and they probably still would have won. But when you have a philosophy, you might as well stick to it. And if you can rest a player that's going to be important for your next lineup that you have planned, then you can rest them for a whole game and you just get that much less burn out of them. It just is smart all around. And I just don't think Jason Tatum or Embiid deserve the jokes that they see out there. Obviously, fan bases are going to fan base, but I don't think really Kerr deserves any criticism in this situation. And I think the team overall has, kept the noise outside of the locker room in that regard. So I've been proud of them for that, proud of the performances. But what did you think about, the rotations, the Tatum situation, the Embiid situation?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think the first game, the Serbia game happens, and there's no like announcement beforehand that Tatum's not going to play. Like everybody's just kind of waiting for him to check in, and so it's like the first quarter that platoon swap happens, and usually that's the 10 that'll be out there. Like they might mix in, Derek White and Halliburton might kind of trade minutes every once in a while, but essentially that'll be the 10 you see. And so when Tatum didn't come out, I was like, man, that's interesting. Like, I wonder if they're going to just play him in the second half. And he didn't play the second half. And there were people on Twitter, like reporters being like, I wonder if Tatum's sick. I wonder if he's injured, da, 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 da. So much so that he was asked about it in the post game. And he's like, no, physically, I'm fine. And then, Kerr got questioned about it as well. But, Lino, I agree with you. I think it's smart. I think it would be probably detrimental to the team to try and play everybody 12 minutes or whatever it might be. You really have to make these choices, and I think it's more empowering for the guys that do play, that know they're going to get this kind of 18 to 21 minutes that the 10 guys in the rotation have been getting. and they just know they play all out in those minutes, and then that'll be how it ends. So I don't have any issue with how Kerr's doing it. The only thing I think that is the reason we've seen so much discourse. I think one is because of the two players involved. Like Embiid and Tatum are just two people. I think because of the fan bases they represent and the rivals of those fan bases, they just, create a lot of negativity on the internet for whether it warrants it or not. There's just a lot of discourse about them all the time. But I also think it's interesting that these are two players that, if you're going to rank the NBA players on Team USA going into next season, these are probably the top two players, I would think. Like these will probably both be first team All NBA if they're healthy next year, and probably both be on the MVP ballot. So it's just interesting that they've been the two that have been out so far. So, and I think that's what opens up kind of like the, honestly, probably bad faith discourse we're seeing from other fan bases, where it's like, well, if Embiid's out of the rotation and Bam hasn't been, then Bam's better than Embiid, or like Heat fans like us might try and
Which
say,
might be true, but
listen, but but it's just however people want to kind of stoke their own
yeah.
fires, I guess.
And I think that's the thing that is a little irritating to me, because people just don't acknowledge that this is such a different situation than the NBA. So obviously what they're able to accomplish in the NBA matters, but you have to understand the context. Like, we didn't just fall from a coconut tree, we exist in the context of all that came before us. But the teams that these guys play for, with exception to Tatum, he plays for a really good team full of half of the players on this freaking roster. But even that team has gaps and has a need for him at a level where he needs to play 35, 40 minutes of every game. Like, that matters. Embiid, even more than maybe the case for any other person except Jokic, or maybe Luka, is someone who he has to be on the floor because his team isn't good enough without him. But this is the Olympics against not the 15 best players in the world that we field every time we play in the Olympics. Like, that is a situation in which these players across the board, it's really just a matter of if the coach wants to field a specific type of lineup. It's not about the fact of whether or not Embiid or Tatum are better than the other starters. Everybody is incredible, and the differences are honestly minimal in the way that you just have to be playing a certain style of basketball. But that doesn't have an implication one way or the other on how those teams or how these players play on their NBA teams, because they're going to go back and be MVPs, finals MVPs. But this is a team that has collectively 6 MVPs or something like that across the board. Like, it just, the scenarios are apples and oranges, and the conversation comparing the two or making one feel like it has anything to do with the other is just a bit exhausting to me personally. But ultimately, I just really appreciate that the team seems to really understand the goal here. Those players seem to understand what's happening. They haven't come out and complained. They still cheer for their teams. They still get excited for big moments. Like, everybody knows the assignment, and that's what I'm most appreciative, because it's working very well for Team USA so far.
Definitely. Yeah, that's well said. I think another point I wanted to kind of touch on that you mentioned was the competition level that we've seen so far. I think it's really highlighted in the Serbia game. But Serbia, that game for the U.S. ended up being a 26-point victory, and Jokic's plus minus was 0. So they were played the U.S. even with Jokic on the court. And I think that's why you see these dominant performances by the US bench, and why a lot of people are calling for the bench unit just to be the starters, because they look so much better than the starters. But I do think it's because these other countries, I think the gap has definitely closed between the US and other countries, but I think we're mostly seeing it in starting lineups. And
The
obviously
top end.
their topping guys play more minutes than ours. But once the 6th man, 7th man, however many these other teams end up playing come in, it's just such a huge gap between, like our bench right now is Bam Adebayo, Kevin Durant, Drew
Dude,
Holiday, Anthony Edwards. Like, it's unbelievable how loaded it is.
congratulations. You survived the LeBron James, Joel Embiid minutes. Your reward is Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, and Kevin Durant.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. So I think that's just something that's been interesting to me because there's been a lot of discussion about how much talent there is internationally. And I think, like we've touched on before, if it was a US versus the world team, I think it would be super competitive and the US could lose. But with the other countries' players divvied up, I just think it's tough for for the second units to survive in any kind of
Mm,
reasonable way. So that's been interesting to watch, but there's still a ton of talent out there. And it's fun to see, like, some of these teams are so well coached. Like South Sudan, Royal Ivy, Luol Deng, they're doing a tremendous job over there. Like, those guys know how to play, they know what they're good at, they really play together. So it's been so cool just to see these other countries really balling out and the US having to make adjustments. Have, like, they're not just walking through this stuff. Like, they're really having to plan lineups, plan defenses. So that's been really cool to see. Speaking of the South Sudan game, I do of course have to give a shout out to Bam. Bam had an amazing game against South Sudan. It's very exciting. Another one of these games where he hit multiple threes. Obviously, incredible defenses we always get from him. Good passing, good just screen and dive play. So shout out to Bam. A lot of fun to see how he played. And about the Embiid, no Embiid stuff, Kerr already said he'll be starting next game. Next game is against Puerto Rico, probably the weakest of the teams in this group. And they're also pretty small. They're more guard centric. So I think Embiid will probably dominate. Again, it'll be interesting to see, is Embiid Tatum an either or thing? Like, is that if Embiid's all the way in, does that mean Tatum's all the way out, or will there be a new person left out of the rotation for the Puerto Rico game? So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, the Olympics roll on. Everybody has either played their group games or only has one left, and then we'll actually get into the Olympic tournament. There's a couple of games still to be decided. Serbia has to play South Sudan. And like I said, the U.S. have to play Puerto Rico. It sounds like most likely it's going to be the U.S. versus Brazil. Not a team with a ton of NBA talent, but they do have a couple guys and they've been playing very hard. And maybe what is more interesting is it sounds like most likely it'll be Canada versus France in the elimination round. And that is a
wow.
star-studded matchup. So, Lino, non-USA division, have you seen anything that's interested you from these other countries or any matchups you'd like to see once we get to the tournament portion of this?
Overall, just been mostly impressed by Team Canada. Like, it's been very interesting to see that much talent on that team. Shea, I think, looks incredible, but just catching a few quarters here and there. Like earlier today, I was watching Giannis and Greece play. Who were they playing? They're playing Australia today, and just kind of watching that game, and they were really giving it to Australia. Like, and it's just still interesting that teams like that, in which I feel like Greece has some really strong top end talent, but probably doesn't have the depth that's required to really stand at the top of the podium here. But just the fact that Giannis is still Giannis, and no matter what setting you put him in across the world, like it's uncanny to watch happen. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been fun to where you can really turn on any of the men's basketball games and the women's basketball games and see some really entertaining basketball. Some of these games are blowouts, but with the point differential, like that stuff still matters.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing how those games develop from there and what the implications are in their groups. But it's just so cool to see the basketball talent across the world right now.
Yeah, well said. It's just been a ton of fun. Like, it all just feels like bonus basketball. Like, you can turn on these games, they're all super high level. Even a team like Japan that was thought to be one of the weaker teams, they almost beat France the other day. It required
Oh man,
overtime and some questionable officiating.
they
If we're being
rigged,
honest, they ejected Rui
rigged.
Hachimura on a very questionable, unsportsmanlike penalty. They also rewarded a 4-point play to France at the very end. So we all know where the Olympics are taking place. Not to push any conspiracies, but
I'm pushing.
but there's been a ton of talent. And Lino, like you said, I've enjoyed watching Giannis, and on a broader way, I just have enjoyed watching players in different roles than we normally see them. It's been cool just to see these guys. Like Dylan Brooks is kind of more similar to Memphis Dylan Brooks than he is Houston Dylan Brooks for Canada. Like, he's more of a go-to guy. Like, he closes games for them. RJ Barrett has been very good for Canada. Of course, Shea has been great. Jamal Murray has struggled, I'd be a little concerned as a Denver fan. I don't know if he was ever allowed to get fully healthy. They had a game today against Spain that was highly contested, and Andrew Nimhart actually closed over Jamal Murray, which Nimhart, I mean, he's very good, but
That
just
that kid is something else.
yeah, he's nice. So it's just been a ton of fun. And then the last game that just wrapped up before we started recording was France and Germany, and Germany
Mm,
beat France in that one, significant by
wow.
like 14. They led the whole way. Franz Wagner had 26 and was hooping, had a monster dunk. Like he's been one of the standout players. I think he's a top three scorer in the Olympics so far, along with Giannis. And I'm
Wow.
blanking on the other guy, but those guys have definitely been producing, and I can't wait for the tournament play upcoming because I think we're going to see some fun stuff. And if it ends up being Canada versus France, I'll be very disappointed just because I'm assuming the US is going to win out, and I was hoping to see both of those teams at some point. But as long as we get to see at least one of them in the gold medal round, that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
So, Lino, I wanted to ask you if you have any other Olympic thoughts about the basketball specifically, or if you just kind of been enjoying any other sporting events that have been going on. It's exciting time of the year. I know everybody kind of picks up little micro obsessions about different sports they don't normally watch. So I wanted to see if anything had caught your eye from the rest of the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the most part, um, it's just an awesome season of being able to look at the TV and there's just a sport to watch. Some sport maybe you've never heard of, only a sport you watch every 2 to 4 years. I find myself watching, sand volleyball, random soccer games from just random countries that I have no investment in. I was watching synchronized diving the other night, and then I ended up watching, what was the other thing? Oh, equestrian dressing. Like I don't even know exactly
Mm,
what the goal of that was, but the horses were like jumping over stuff, going through things. Then I watched equestrian cross country where they're just kind of galloping, like not at a very fast pace, just who knows how long they're supposed to be out there. But there's just so many things on. There's so many impressive stuff. I'd have to say, when it comes to my favorite things that I've seen so far, gymnastics still takes it. Like if you have not
yeah.
tuned into a gymnastics session, like it's insane what they're doing out there. The women's gymnastic team did incredible, saw things I've just never seen before in my life. The men's gymnastics team was really fun, seeing them go out there and secure, I think, what maybe our first goal or our first medal, and like I think they got silver, bronze. I think they got bronze, and maybe like the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I think
And
it was like 16 years or something like
yeah, I
that.
feel like it's been a hot minute. And the pommel horse, what was his
Hmm.
name? Let me see if I can find it. Steven Nedoroshic, I think
Hmm.
is how you pronounce that. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but the dude is just sitting in his chair for hours, just in his chair, eyes closed, zenned out until the one event that he does at the very, very end. And that is it. And he does it. He wins the medal for him. He gets him on the podium. It's just an awesome story. And those sports are so fun. But what were some of your favorite moments in the Olympics? And maybe if you have a new favorite athlete?
Yeah, so gymnastics definitely is always a great time. Getting to see Simone Biles do what she does, just be incredible. I don't know nearly enough about gymnastics to really contextualize how great she is, but as a casual, I'm just gonna say she's the greatest Olympian to ever live, and it doesn't sound like anybody can really contest that at this point. But I think to me, watching gymnastics, it almost has a similar feel to watching combat sports, which is not something I watch a lot of. But, with basketball, if you build a 30-point lead in the fourth quarter, or most team sports, if you have a gigantic lead, it's kind of over. Like,
Yeah.
if it's early in the game, maybe a crazy run happens. But late in it, that's just what it's going to be, what it's going to be. With gymnastics, it feels like, and it's different at different events, but really one bad fall and it's over. Like 4 years of training, your whole life is dedicated to this moment. So the pressure of that like singular moment, like Simone when she got gold in the individuals, she still had to like do a solid floor routine to win gold. And
Yeah.
I don't think she would have even medaled if she did a bad job. And that's one fall. It's not like these are like I don't even know what a layup, it's not
Yeah.
even like these are like a little midi, like these are deep 3-point shot types of aerials going on. Like it's just incredible to watch. So seeing Simone Suni Lee definitely has a fan
Mhm.
in me now. She's incredible. I didn't really watch much gymnastics from the Tokyo Olympics where she got gold. So it was so cool to get to hear her story. She had like a health scare last year and is now like performing so well. And so it's just a ton of fun. I mean, I think I'm one thing this whole Olympics has made me really excited about is that NBC got the broadcast right to the NBA because
Yeah.
they do such a good job with these broadcasts. Obviously, Leo and I love Dwayne Wade, and he's doing an amazing job calling these basketball games with Noah Eagle. They're a great team. I really hope that they're NBC's A game or A team for the big games. Mike
Yeah.
Tirico, like I wish he
Mhm.
could read me bedtime stories. I just love hearing him. Like, it's in the evening. All the events have happened because of the time difference. So he's just doing the recap, walking you through all the different stuff. So that's been great to see. I would say new favorite athlete from all this. I wouldn't say new favorite, but a guy that I followed when I was younger and am now like all the way fully back invested in is Nigel Houston. He was
Mhm.
somebody that when I was 13, I think he was 13. I think we're around the same age.
That's
And
crazy.
I was into skateboarding and he turned pro at like 13. And so I've known of him my whole life. And obviously within the last, 5 or 6 years, I guess he's become the most prolific contest skater in the world, just like probably the best street skater ever. And, he had a disappointing Olympics last time around in Tokyo. I think he placed ninth or something. So he wasn't able to get gold, but getting to watch him get bronze to medal. And it's just something you could tell he really wanted. And again, skating, similar to gymnastics, like on their routines, at least, it's like, man, they're one fall away from like not even qualifying. So there's
Mhm.
just so much tension. I get so nervous watching those. And
Yeah.
it's what love about sports. It's just a ton of fun to kind of see these people, they just find greatness within themselves, and push themselves
Mhm.
to their limits. One other thing I do need to mention, my wife has become obsessed with surfing. That has
Oh, yeah?
definitely been the most watched sport in our household, partially because surfing is not affected by the time difference because it's not actually happening in France. I believe it's in Tahiti, I want to say.
Oh, wow,
So
that's
it's
fun.
on more like in the later afternoon,
Just
evening.
imagining them trying to surf on the Seine River. Good luck.
It's just been so cool to see, like, my wife Ashley like knows all the scoring systems. She's like explaining to me what to look for. Of course, like my like casual brain, I'm like, so like, are there sharks out there? Like, I'm like worried about the logistical safety stuff. She's like, shut up, just look at this wave. But so that's been a ton of
That's
fun,
awesome.
and it's cool to see. They've also had like a lot of weather delays for the surfing, which is again one
Mhm.
of those. As a mostly basketball fan, I'm like, huh, yeah, if not a problem. My favorite sport experiences, but yeah, I guess if the waves are bad, you just can't go surf. Like
Yeah, it's like just
it's
flat as
just
hell out there. It's like, well,
yeah,
we just have to wait for the next wave.
it's
That's the crazy part about
crazy.
that sport is like we're just waiting on the ocean for this
Yeah,
sport. This is
and
so deconstructed and like I love
there's
that.
like priority, like certain surfers get first dibs on certain waves. Like if you don't have priority, you can take a not as appealing wave, but you're guaranteed to get a chance at it. It's crazy. It's cool to see a sport and nature intermingle so much the
Yeah,
way that
that's wild.
surfing. Yeah, it's really crazy. So
I did want to give one shout out to the
mhm.
men's USA soccer team, who I don't think have scored a goal in like
Mhm.
8 to 16 years, a long freaking time.
Wow,
And in their first game in the group play, they scored like five.
nice.
So they really tore the lid off of what was secured shut for I think maybe the better part of a decade.
Yeah,
So shout out to them for that. I don't know how they've been. That's the only game I've watched so far. I don't even know if they've played again since. But hey, at the end of the day, regardless of if we get on the podium or not, at least we know how to score again. So shout
yeah,
out to the men's soccer team.
definitely. Lino, I did want to ask you: have you caught any of the 3-on-3 basketball, men or women's?
No, I saw Jimmy Fredette got hurt or something, but otherwise, I
Yeah.
haven't actually got to catch a game. I did see some commentary about how freaking fast it is. Like someone will score, and then they'll just rocket the ball
Yeah.
back to the checkup line, and then immediately put up another shot. It's like that is
It
so
is
chaotic.
it is interesting. Yeah, so the second the ball goes through the basket, a 12-second shot clock starts. So the team that was just scored on has to get the ball out of the net, clear it to the 3-point line, and then try and score, run their set, whatever it may be, in 12 seconds. So as somebody that plays a lot of like 3-on-3 pickup, it doesn't really look like what me and my old YMCA has-beens are doing. We're definitely a lot more slow paced in our old age, but it's fun to see. There's things about it that I feel like could maybe be optimized. The ball is a size smaller than an NBA ball, but it's the same weight. And to me, I think like you look at like the women's team, and they have almost all WNBA players. They have Ryan Howard, Dearica Hamby.
Mm,
I think that would be a cool spot for the men's 3x3 to kind of get, is like, okay, the guys that probably aren't quite good enough for the Olympic team play in this. But right now you're required to play on like a 3-on-3 circuit and do all this different stuff. So I don't know. It's something I'll monitor. As a huge basketball fan, I was just surprised how I wasn't like obsessed with it. But maybe it's just something I have to
yeah,
watch a little more to get
yeah. We'll
into.
see. Probably take a little bit of little growing pains there to get used to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's new. It's fairly new to the Olympics, so definitely still working out some kinks. But yeah, a bunch of fun stuff left. Most of the track and field events are left, and then obviously we have the rest of the men and women's basketball tournament. Shout out to the U.S. women's team. Didn't get to talk about them much, but Asia
Dominating.
Wilson, Brianna Stewart, they're just killing it. They look
Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, do you have any other closing thoughts on any of this, Lean? Anything you want to tell the
No.
people?
Keep watching the Olympics. I think wrestling started up this week. I don't know if
Oh,
they made it out of group play, but wrestling should be coming pretty soon. And then track and field should be
mm-hmm.
eventually, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm
Sorry.
excited for.
Think the first heats and stuff are starting up today. Oh, the shooting. I didn't watch any of
Oh
it,
yeah,
but the still
gosh,
images from shooting were so cool.
just incredible. Well, let me see if I can find her name. It's on my
There were
uh,
so many. There was the one
Kim
guy.
Yeji. Kim Yeji from Korea.
Yeah.
I think she got a gold medal and set the world record in the 25 meter, perhaps. Looks someone straight out of Cyberpunk. Just
Yeah.
like when we talk about aura, that's aura.
Honestly.
Like literally, like it's so cool. And then you got the inverse of that. Gosh, I tried to make sure I had everybody's names, but I don't. But it was a guy from Turkey,
Yep. Silver medalist.
and silver medalist, just wearing a random pair of Warby Parker glasses and a
Like they
t-shirt,
pulled him from the
jeans.
crowd. It
It
was,
just got to work.
yeah, just didn't even close one eye. He was like, ah, and I can see it. Bop, bop. Like it
He's like,
was, it
I
was
see better with
incredible.
two eyes. It's simple.
Yeah. It was,
Oh, Yusuf Dekech, Dikec with a little squiggly at the bottom. Um, Shout out to Turkey because that's so
that
cool.
was
It's
crazy.
fun that like both of those are like equally cool. Like you can do
Yeah.
kind of the super sci-fi tech glasses, backwards cap, all black, like and just
Yeah.
like really look that cool. And then you could just be a dude
Yeah.
with a gun.
Both have tons of aura, just in
Yeah,
different ways. So
yeah.
yeah, the shooting has been so cool. You just don't get stories like that anywhere else but the Olympics. Like I've never thought about shooting competitions in my life, and
Nope.
now I'm obsessed. I have like fan art of these people all over my timeline, like drawn up to be like
Cover
anime
superheroes.
protagonists. Yeah, it's so cool. So yeah, with that, we will close. But thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Irrational Confidence. It was a ton of fun. We will probably be back next week. We may go to an every other week schedule, just depending on who's all available. But we'll keep some episodes coming your way. And as always, check us out on social media if you want to stay up to date on all of that. We're on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube is a great place to check us out. Any emails, any questions, any complaints, any concerns, you can send to confidenceirrational@gmail.com. And for myself, Micah, my good friend Lino, we appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.